In today's video recap, I will explain the horror movie Aliens. In its time, this was a very popular film that was loved by many. I hope you enjoy the recap. Let's get into it. The last film ended with Ripley going into cryosleep after releasing a transmission, and then many years pass by. Fortunately, a salvage team ends up finding and rescuing her. Ripley is then brought back to Earth, where she learns she has been in cryosleep for 57 years. We can say that the story of this movie is developed exactly 57 years after the first Alien movie. Here we see another man named Burke. He is an employee of William Corporation. From Burke, we learn that Ripley had a daughter who died of old age. Now many may think that Ripley is young, so how did her daughter die of old age? Maybe they don't age in cryosleep. A trial is then shown for Ripley as there are many charges against her. There was a governing body sitting that blamed Ripley because they had a commercial cargo load that was destroyed, which was worth several millions of dollars. Ripley tells them that an alien entered the ship and killed all of their crew members. Not one person believes Ripley's word. At the same time, that planet was named LV-426, and it has been colonized for multiple years without the sight of aliens. Since they have no proper evidence, they cannot punish Ripley, but they can cancel Ripley's license. On the other hand, we see some people on the planet LV-426. Here's a family out looking around but end up finding the crashed alien ship. After finding it, they go inside to investigate. Moments later we see two people frantically run out from there. As a woman calls for help on the radio, we get to see a man laying on the ground with a facehugger alien attached to his face. The scene switches as we see Burke, who comes to meet Ripley. They are now on Earth. Burke was accompanied by another man who was a colonial marine. His name is Lieutenant Gorman. They come to Ripley for help. There was no response from the human colonies on the planet LV-426. Because of this, they are very worried. They want Ripley and the Marines to check out the planet and investigate. However, Ripley does not agree with them because she knows what happened to the people on that planet. So she doesn't want to see the same danger again. But at the same time, Burke made her an offer and said that if Ripley helps him, she will get the license back. So Ripley decides and accepts Burke's word. They then head out for the planet. They were in a spaceship called Silico, and on that ship, they were in cryosleep. Because the planet is so far from Earth, it may take them years to get there. Now they approach the planet and emerge from cryosleep, and then Ripley tells all the soldiers what she has seen before on the planet. However, no one believes her and everyone starts laughing when she tells them about aliens. On that ship, there was an android named Bishop, and Ripley gets very angry seeing him because the last android tried to kill her. Then they take a small aircraft and land on the planet. The Marines are taking a good look at the whole place, and we can see that the place is in shambles. At the same time, we notice that the floor has completely melted. Ripley knows that the blood of xenomorphs is like a kind of acid. We then see them arrive at a laboratory, and there we see the xenomorph in a large glass container. They are kept frozen to be experimented on, and now we understand that the people who were here were experimenting in this area. Somehow, a mistake was made and it caused the population being wiped out. There was even a xenomorph still alive. Then they found a little girl named Newt that avoided everything by staying well hidden. The girl becomes panicked after seeing them, but Ripley calms her down. Ripley takes Newt to the armored vehicle to keep her safe. Marines, on the other hand, notice some movement in level 3. So they head there to investigate the place. When they get there, they can't help but notice how strange the place is. The surrounding walls and environments are so different and are not man-made. Ripley realizes that the Marines are under a giant heat exchanger. It is a massive atmosphere processing system. Simply put, if the Marines fire any shots in there, it will explode like a nuclear warhead with a huge blast radius. For this reason, Gorman orders his soldiers not to fire. They are to use flame weapons only, as their mags and grenades were collected. They run into a room where they find people's bodies molded into the walls and a little dead alien facehugger corpse. Then they find a living person who's asking for them for a bullet, or two. That is cut real short when a xenomorph comes bursting out of her. After flaming the xenomorph, we see the aliens start to move on the ceiling as their radar scanner starts to pick up a lot of movement. They panic as they cannot find an exact location of all the movement. One of the soldiers grabs from the back and accidentally lights up the guy holding the grenades and ammo. The bag ends up exploding, killing half of the Marines in an instant. After the Sarge gets taken out by a xenomorph, the rest of the team starts going frantic. Ripley takes control of the situation and start driving the armored vehicle they are based in to the Marines' location. The Marines load up in the vehicle, but before closing the doors, one of the aliens gets its face in just for Hicks to introduce it to his double barrel. At this moment, they find out the alien's blood is a very potent form of acid and eats away everything it touches. Ripley starts to drive like a NASCAR driver on a hot Sunday until an alien tries to get in from the front window. A simple slam of the brakes and some gas pancake that xenomorph. After getting some distance, they stop to gather themselves. They notice Sarge and another member have low vitals, but are still alive. Ripley reminds them that they are beyond saving at this moment. She makes a suggestion of going to orbit and nuking the whole facility from space, but Burke denies it. She reminds him that it's a military operation and Hicks is in charge, who ends up agreeing with Ripley's idea. They call for the pickup and start to wait, but a xenomorph has snuck on the ship and killed the pilot, causing the shuttle to crash. Now they are stuck on this planet with no way out. Newt tells Ripley that they better go back because it's getting dark and they come out at night mostly. They bunker up and go over what equipment they have left. They need to survive for 17 days until any rescue attempt will be made. They panic, but Ripley reminds them Newt stayed alive without any training, and they can do it. She wants all blueprints for the facility to know every entrance and sends Hudson to gather it. After some careful planning, they decide to use the sentry units to defend them through the tunnels. Once the defenses are set, they settle in and Ripley gives Newt her watch for good luck after having a talk about monsters. Ripley finds out from Bishop that Burke wants the alien test subjects kept alive to take back. She ain't having that and goes to tell him how much trouble he's going to be for trying to sneak those through customs. The alarms start to go off as hundreds of rounds are fired from the sentry guns until they run out of ammo. They find out that the emergency venting will blow in 4 hours, with a blast radius of 30 kilometers equal to 40 megatons. Bishop decides to head out to set up a remote connection to call a shuttle down to come save them. The last 2 sentry guns start to defend the tunnel against more xenomorphs until they stop attacking, leaving one of the turrets with only 10 rounds left. Hicks shows Ripley how to use the pulse rifle and grenade launcher after she tells him she can handle it. Now she's ready to rock with the Marines, but first, we get a quick scene of Bishop calling down the shuttle remotely. Ripley wakes up to find out the facehugger has escaped its container and loose in the room somewhere. As it lunges at her, she traps in the bed and heads for the door, but it won't open. We then see Burke flip off the camera that shows Ripley calling for help. What an a-hole. Ripley gets smart and triggers the fire alarm using a lighter, causing everyone to rush to them. Hudson immediately saves Newt as everyone else helps Ripley. Ripley explains that Burke planned on bringing the aliens home using Ripley and Newt as host and put them into cryosleep. At that moment, the aliens end up cutting the power, causing the Marines to use scanners to check the areas. Hudson reports multiple movements saying they're in here. Hicks calls them back and then they seal the doors to barricade themselves inside the room. Hudson tells them they are 4 meters, but Ripley says that's not right, because that's inside the room. Hicks takes a peek above the ceiling just to find the whole swarm crawling towards them. Once the attack starts, Burke heads out the back door and locks them in the room as Ripley tries to get out with Newt. Hudson ends up getting his feet grabbed and pulled under by an alien, leaving one less Marine. Hicks welds the door Burke locked open, but this just leads them to a small corridor with another locked door. Burke happens to meet one of the aliens face to face on the other side. Newt shows Ripley a small air vent in the room, so the team starts heading through. Hicks calls Bishop for the ETA on the ship, which is 16 minutes away. Vasquez runs out of pulse ammo and uses her pistol to show one of the aliens who they're messing with, but acid falls on her leg, slowing her down. Gorman goes back for her but ends up getting trapped between aliens. Once he's out of ammo, he grabs a grenade, sets it, and this is where we have to say goodbye to Gorman and Vasquez. The explosion causes Newt to slip and fall in a crevice that Ripley cannot get through. Newt ends up slipping and sliding down a tunnel. Hicks and Ripley use the scanner to find her. They find her location, but she's stuck under the floor rail, so Hicks starts to use the plasma cutter. The scanner detects movement, but an alien sneaks up behind Newt before Ripley gets to her. She demands she is alive to Hicks, so they agree to find her. While entering an elevator, one of the aliens tries to hitch a ride, but Hicks denies him entrance, injuring himself when the alien's blood sprays on him after shooting it. Ripley takes Hicks to Bishop where the ship has just landed. She tells Bishop they aren't leaving because she wants her Newt back. She puts together a flamethrower pulse rifle and prepares to go show those aliens the capabilities of a mad human. Bishop tells him they have 19 minutes left. Ripley and Hicks tell each other their first names, which are Dwayne and Ellen. Ripley loads up and heads down to level 1 to find her Newt. Using the watch she gave Newt, she slowly starts making her way to save the little girl. After leaving some flares for marking the way back, Ripley finds the watch, but there is no Newt. We then see Newt waking up screaming as a facehugger is starting to hatch. Ripley makes it just in time to shoot the alien, and then shoot a few more before they start to head back. After a bit of running, Ripley notices she's surrounded by eggs. A small turn and she ends up finding the queen alien as it's laying eggs. Ripley has a quick stare down with the queen and then burns some eggs as a threat. The queen lets them leave, but Ripley ends up burning all of the eggs and then has a little target practice. She then plays with the grenade launcher some before leaving with Newt. The alien queen is pretty upset now, so she starts to chase after Ripley. After waiting forever for the elevator, the queen ends up coming around the corner just as it arrives. They barely make it in and head to surface moments before the queen gets to them. The problem is, a second elevator landing letting the queen catch a lift to the surface also. The ship is not there when they get to the surface. The second elevator arrives revealing the queen alien, but Bishop arrives to save the day and picks them up. After flying away and the heat exchangers exploding blowing up the nest, they make it back to the mothership. Ripley and Bishop are having a talk when they notice acid melting the floor right next to them. Bishop gets speared from the back by the Queen's tail, who hitched a ride on the space shuttle. After ripping Bishop in two, Ripley runs into a hangar and closes the door. The Queen starts to try and catch Newt, who's hiding under the floor grates, until Ripley shows up in a new exosuit. It's actually just used for moving just cargo, but it looks cool. Ripley gets into some hand-to-hand combat with the Queen. Using a remote on the exosuit, she opens up the loading dock and then drops the alien in. But she's grabbed and taken down with the alien in the suit. She unfastens herself and starts to climb out, but is grabbed by the Queen's tail, forcing her to open the airlock. After a quick leg shake, the Queen loses grip and gets sent straight out. Don't count Bishop out yet, because he grabs Newt as she is sliding out towards the airlock. The movie ends as Ripley sets everyone up and herself for cryosleep for their long journey home. Please support me with that like button and subscribing if you enjoyed this video. It really helps me out and will give you all future video release updates. As always, thank you so much for watching, stay safe and God bless.